Hey guys, Miss Warren here. Today I'm going to demonstrate how I'm going to start out my watercolor still life painting. So I have here on my phone a photograph of my watercolor still life. Now I probably should have done it horizontal. I have another composition that's horizontal, but I'm going to start with this one for today. So I know my picture's vertical, so I'm gonna have to figure out how to kind of fill out my space and make it look appropriate on this long sheet of paper. Now I could turn my paper vertically to kind of fill it out, or I could go back and change my composition. For the purpose of this video, I'm gonna just leave it horizontal for now, even though my photographic reference is vertical. Okay, so I'm gonna sketch it out super lightly in pencil. For the video, I'm gonna press harder than you would because you kind of want to end up covering up most of these lines with your watercolor paint. Now, it's okay if your lines show through your watercolor paint. That could even be part of your design. And if you wanted to go back through and outline it in ink and fill it with watercolor, that would also be an option. But for today's purposes, I'm going to just start sketching out lightly in pencil, figuring out where I want everything in proportion to the paper. So now the first thing that I want to look at is I kind of want to look at my main object. It's further back and it's the tallest object in the picture. Yet again, I want it about 1/3 of the way into my page. So 1/3 of the way in my page would be right here. So I'm probably going to sketch that vase from about here to about here. Then the skull, I'm going to put little markers. I'm probably going to put the top in to make it proportional. The top of the skull goes about halfway up the vase, and the bottom of the skull overlaps down here a little bit further down. And then there's a cast shadow that kind of goes around that way. Okay. Then my seashell would probably be over here, roundabout. It's a little bit further back than the skull is. So it's going to be, the base of it's going to be higher than the base of the skull. And then the box overlaps the back of the skull here. And the top of it goes a little bit higher. And the corner of it ends before you get to the seashell. Now that box is handmade out of clay, so it's not exactly straight, so I wouldn't use a ruler for it. So now I'm going to start going and adding the details. I think I'm going to kind of fill out the skull first because it's the closest thing to me. So I'm going to carefully look at the, now that I have about the size that I want, I'm going to carefully look at the shape. So I'm going to, it's kind of flat on this side, kind of slopes up, gets a little bit rounded towards the top, and then slopes back down. Then you have the eye socket kind of sloping this way, and then the cheekbone comes in, and the teeth come out about here. I'll fill in a little more detail in a second. Then the jawline. This will actually come down further than I originally intended it to. Then you have the jawline here. It's a little bit hard because that's kind of in shadow on this side. Teeth. The eye sockets take up a good portion of the face. The nose cavity is almost like a curved triangle about here. Now, if you want to start to kind of outline where the shadows are, I'm not going to color in the shadows because we're going to do that with paint, but there's a shadow that's cast all around here, and it's a shadow that goes really deep in the eyes here. You can kind of see the edge of the bone here, but then it goes into shadow here. The shadow goes almost all the way to the edge over here. The teeth come up almost triangular like this. You see the roots of the teeth. And then there's a shadow in here. This is just kind of marking out so I know where to put stuff. And then the bottom teeth kind of go triangular almost in the other direction. And then there's shadow all on this side. I'm going to just put some vague lines to kind of mark that. Oh, and from this side on the skull all the way up. I know I want to put a darker color there. There's also a line and a gap on this box here. And it changes directions when you change sides here. And this angle's all in shadow, so I know I want to put it a darker angle on that. Then I have the seashell overlapping the box. And then the pattern kind of all coming from one central point. And a shadow cast right here. There's a wrinkle in the fabric, and there's a shadow cast right there. There's some wrinkles in the fabric in the background with some shadows cast on that side. This box is a little bit taller. So, wrinkle in the fabric here. Now I'm going to get the vase on this side. It has a scoop and it gets fat right before the skull's head. And then it has these flowers spilling up, overlapping each other in all of this texture, these leaves that point different ways. Lots of shadow on one side, and they kind of spill over the side here and there, and then the scoop of the bottle goes out, and then right about the base of the eye comes back in. Then I have the shine marks, which I'm just going to kind of outline, because if it's super white, I don't want to put any paint here or here. And I don't want to put any paint like here on this little edge here where you see all this reflecting light. And I want to get darker on this edge here. You can see kind of the back in there, and then you can see the stems inside the bottle. Because it's transparent. Now, it's so dark here, you can barely see the other seashell. So I'm going to zoom in. I think I'm going to change that other seashell from the photograph that I took. And I think I'm going to put a little bit of light on it because it's a little bit too dark. I can't really see it at all. But I just want to record where I'm going to put it. Okay, so there's my basic composition. At this point, I would be ready to start painting in. I'm gonna put a little bit of line here and a little bit of wrinkled cloth up behind it to kind of imply where the rest of that would be. The shadow here for that cast shadow on that side. So at this point, it's very light, but I'd be about ready to start painting this in.